All right. I thought I would get on and do a Tuesday stream like I normally do. I wanted to talk about a few different things. I got a haircut, so I don't look like a complete total bum and scrub. Um, Basically, I wanted to discuss. I hadn't forgotten about the personal predictions I made. Again, they were personal predictions that I ended up deciding I'd share with everybody. I hadn't forgotten about that. Hi there, all smiles. I see you there. Um, and I saw an interesting development relating to that. Now, remember, I did say there could be a margin of error. And I'm talking about this just for fun. Remember, my predictions were just for fun. Uh, Not that the predictions themselves were fun, it was the topic that was fun, as in, like, making the predictions and actually sharing them with people. But yeah, I did say there could be a margin of error, and it is the 1st of August. But I did say that it could be a few weeks. We'll see. But I saw an interesting development relating to the Ukraine thing, and here's what it is. Uh, Evidently, the Ukrainian parliament, uh, or Duma, whatever they call it there in Ukraine, they are making a law now, which is a step towards integrating themselves with Poland. And yeah, I was watching the Duran report, and they had mentioned that, so I went and looked more into it, and sure enough, yeah, they're really doing that. Um, and yeah, it could be a rat line. It could be a rat line, if you know what a rat line is. After World War II, for instance, the Nazi regime leaders escaped via rat lines. They had a system called Odessa, sort of like the Ukrainian city or the Texas city. There's a city in Texas called Odessa out there in West Texas. But there was a rat line called Odessa, which was for the former SS members who committed atrocities or ran the concentration camps and things like that. They had rat lines to escape from Europe and run off to safety, either in South America or the Middle East or other such places. Well, this law is interesting in that it would take steps to integrate quickly the status of Polish uh, citizens in Ukraine, which could be reciprocated by Poland, which would open the door for uh, the Ukrainian leadership, the regime of Ukraine, to flee, to get out of town. It opens up the door for all of that. So I found that interesting because I even said, if you look at my past videos, I even had said at one point that you know there could be a coup, or the regime could be on the run. They could just run off, or they could or it could all just collapse, and different things can happen that'll put an end to that situation. And they are very much on the verge of collapse. I mean, they're down to using old men, and the situation on the ground is such that they're running low on everything. The West has to send them weapons. They're in a bad state of decay and collapse. Economically, they're no longer viable. That whole country's falling apart. Oh, hey, Bang Bang. Hey, Radar. Hey, how are y'all doing? I hope y'all are good. But yeah, I found that very interesting because uh, when I had made those predictions many months ago, it's now been like 4 months ago when I made my predictions, when I actually shared them with people, and I had predicted that sometime in July, provided with a margin of error, it could be a few weeks or whatever. I said sometime soon in July, or a few weeks after, a few weeks earlier, Ukraine could collapse. And they are very much on the verge of a collapse. So now that they're taking steps to set themselves up to where they can evacuate and run off to Poland, um, it looks like my predictions are set up to come true here very soon. I mean, we'll see. But the food and fuel collapse and economic and financial collapse, that is in the process of happening right now. That is in the process of happening right now. I said expect that sometime in August, or maybe at the very earliest September. And I did. I said that, and it's happening right now. I said this many months ago. I said this months ago, and now here we are. Here we are. Well, you know, what I had to work with insofar as information is concerned at the time, and what I was able to do as far as mathematical calculations, it appears to be coming true. I mean, those predictions are coming true. And now with further developments that we see that you know we see that other things are lining up to take place. We see now that there's different theatrical goings on occurring, to where you've got this whole issue going on in the Pacific. I mean, does it mean that they're going to invade Taiwan soon, or does it mean that this is actually going to amount to much of anything? Nah, not necessarily. No, because we know there still has to be a collapse, a big collapse in the West. The West has to economically collapse. And now, speaking of the collective West, Europe is on the verge of a serious economic collapse. They are going to be freezing this winter. They are going to be hungry this winter in Western Europe. Yes, they are. They are on the verge of a major economic collapse. So America's next, because America very much is integrated in with the Western Europeans economically and financially. So whatever happens to Europe is going to affect us. Likewise, whatever China decides to do to us is going to affect us more, like how they weaponize trade against us. That already has destroyed the reliability of our entire supply chain. I mean, it has. Our economy is in shambles. Because why? Because China is the biggest industrial base on the face of the earth. They are the industrial, economic, financial, military, technological, and gold-holding hegemon. They are. They are. They basically lead the world in every single solitary category that even matters. So when they have weaponized their trade against us with Shanghai, their primary trading port with the West, with the collective West, with the EU, with North America, when they weaponized the Shanghai port and pulled their little stunt there where they pretended like there was something going on that really wasn't, that they were just doing it as an excuse, because they're insidious, and we know that's how they think, that's how they do things. They're very, very insidious people. Now, with that knowledge, you can ascertain that this whole situation that's going on now, as of today, you can ascertain that the ending of it is not going to be what people think. The ending of it is going to be more insidious, I would say. They are probably going to dump U.S. debt, U.S. bonds. They're probably going to destroy the petrodollar as an act of revenge for what we have done to crater the American economy and system once and for all. They're probably going to crater everything. So, knowing that, then sets us up for the events of my entire internal conflict scenario to occur. Does it not? If you've watched the first video of that entire thing, then you understand this. You understand exactly what happened in that first video. It turned into Syria here. Syria was the template of much of that entire internal conflict. So we very much are being set up for something very much the same to occur. So basically we're at that point to where they're going to do uh, exactly to us, what I put in that scenario in the first video. They're going to crater our economy. They're going to dump U.S. Treasury debt at some point. They're going to, all the bonds, everything. They're going to dump all of that. They're going to continually keep weaponizing trade. They're going to uh, continue to finish their preparations. They're going to wrap up their preparations for the invasion. They're going to get everything lined up to where it's all set and ready to go. They're going to let us destroy each other in an internal conflict because that figures into their long-term plans as well. And what better way to set us up for an internal conflict than to actually pull the rug out from under us financially and economically? A nation that can't feed its people is a nation that erupts into internal conflict. They know that. They know that. And that's why that figures into their plans. They're very austere-minded people, as I've explained many, many times. They're very austere-minded people. So they're going to not spend resources and money that they don't have to. So could they kick our ass right now? Man, no question. No question. They could sink our whole Navy in a few hours. They could overrun this country. But the problem inherent with all of that is that would become like the best case scenario of the invasion that I put into my work, wherein you had an effective guerrilla campaign arise to where, there were still people alive that were quasi-effective who could fight back. China doesn't want to deal with that. So why not let their enemies just butcher each other, do that work for them, so that they don't have to spend the money and time and effort to do that. Once they occupy this place, their entire objective is to rebuild it and colonize it and xenofy it as quickly as possible so that they can begin to exploit the resources. If you have to fight a humongous counterinsurgency campaign, which they're going to do because, they're still going to do it, and they're going to, over time, make this land desolate. But the point is that what they want to do and what's going to happen are still two different things, because men make plans and God laughs. Even for all of China's careful planning, they're still going to have trouble. I mean, look how huge this country is. I mean, they're still going to have to hold it down regardless. But they want it to be as easy as possible when they do actually do it. So keep that in mind at all times when you contemplate everything that's actually happening and why it has to happen that way. Their entire premise behind fourth generation warfare or hybrid warfare, you can call it either or, the whole entire premise behind it is that, there's a long setup period, then they, build up their troops, logistics in secret, while also insidiously weaponizing the institutions of a nation against itself by infiltrating and subverting them, be it the government or corporations or whatever. They're going to weaponize it against the people. And while they're setting up their forces, and they're going to weaken us little by little by little by little over time until it's time for them to strike, so it'll be as easy as possible. That is why there's so many steps. There's 4 steps of fourth generation warfare. If you watched my 96-hour invasion documentary series, I have the 4 steps of fourth generation warfare in there. This stuff comes out of their manuals. I'm not just making this shit up. This shit comes from their own mouths. This comes from their own mouths. I'm not making this up. This is them. This is them. This is their mentality. This is what they think. This is what they say. I'm relaying it to you all so that you all understand this stuff. They have been doing this for decades. They've been setting up for decades. So, take that for what it's worth. That's what's going on here. They've been setting up for decades, um, and they're making it such that they're getting themselves ready, um, to where that they can have as easy of an invasion with as little effort in the occupation as humanly possible. You're conquering the third biggest nation in population on the earth. You're taking over the fourth biggest in landmass. You know, the effort involved in such an undertaking would be monumental. It would be huge. Do they want to make it as easy as possible? Well, hell yeah. I mean, that goes without saying. They're not just gonna, just bum rush into things without a clear plan. Like you don't take over the third biggest nation in population and fourth biggest in land size. You don't just take all that over without a clearly defined plan. You need to plan something like that for decades, which is why it's taken them so long to do so. So, again, getting off of that, getting back onto the Ukraine thing, like they're setting up their rat lines now. It looks like so that their regime can be on the run. Now that also ties in with what I've told you all about what's going on with Serbia, and now you all see what's happening with Kosovo. So in Kosovo, you've got the issue there along the Serbian Kosovar border. So that's because there's Chicom troops in Serbia getting ready to overrun Western Europe. The Western elites know their power base is now threatened. They know it. They know it. Otherwise, what sense does that even make for there to be a new war between Serbia and Kosovo? Apart from the fact of Serbia wanting to rectify the wrongs of 1999, and China also never having had forgotten what NATO did to their embassy in Belgrade in Serbia in 1999. Serbia and China have always been close allies. But that and Serbia with Russia also, but this entire situation is them rectifying a wrong in their minds. In their minds, they feel they're rectifying a wrong. Serbia feels that it's been dismembered and mistreated, and that it's been picked on by the West, and it wants revenge. It wants its territory back. Okay, it wants to rebuild itself into what it was before. It wants Kosovo back, of course. It didn't want to lose it in the first place. So, I mean, it only makes sense that, now that you have the strongest nation in the world, China, building up their forces in Serbia, it makes all the sense in the world that what's happening between Serbia and Kosovo is happening. That's like a trial run before they decide to go all in against, the West. They're getting themselves ready for what is to come as far as like overrunning NATO. Them and Russia and their allies, be it Belarus, Serbia, Albania, whoever's all there, the other CSTO members that are involved, so on and so forth. You're going to have all that. It's going to happen. So you're going to have these things, and I told you guys another prediction I've said that's coming true, that you're going to have multiple theaters open up. Multiple theaters open up. They're all going to drain the West. They're all going to drain the West of its vital resources, military, financial, logistics, and ammunition, all of it, fuel, everything they need to prosecute a major war. These tiny little nitpicky theaters are going to open up, and that's going to suck all that in, just like Ukraine. And you're going to have a whole bunch of them. You might have one open up in the Middle East with Iran, Syria, then you're going to have other ones elsewhere too. And I already told you all that. I told you all that before this whole Ukraine thing even happened. I told you all that. I've been telling everybody, Yes, TT, go look at my community post. I have one there about I've even mentioned it in my past lives about Xi Jinping putting troops there, Chinese troops in Serbia. You'd really like a lot of my past work and also my community resources I have there. I have a lot of good typed out written stories in the community tab as well. If you have a laptop or PC, it makes it very easy to do all the scrolling because to start one story, each part is like a chapter, and you'd want to start at the bottom and like work your way up. But the thing is that you have all of this occurring now, and you basically have these things happening that I've already predicted. Everything I've predicted is coming true. It's coming true. I mean, I told you all about multiple theaters opening up. I said that many months ago. I mean, I know those of you who are with me that recall all of that, you all know that I've said this. I've said that there's going to be many theaters opening up, and they're starting to now. They're starting to now. Just it's not just Ukraine. It's the Serbia Kosovo thing. You're going to have more in the Middle East. You're going to have others elsewhere. It's going to happen. And it's going to set the West up for its epic demise. It's death by 1,000 cuts is what it really is, what it truly is. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It is the brainchild of the CCP and of the Russian political oligarchy together scheming with their Eurasian integration for the economic trading and financial integration with the SIPs and the SPFS system and the trading bloc, their Belt and Road, all of it. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, meets the CSTO, and they're integrating Eurasia, BRICS Plus, all of it. BRICS Plus could be the new future reconstituted UN, the Eastern-oriented, Eastern-centric UN upon the end of the West, So the West days are numbered. As I've said in the other live, 2 lives ago, or actually, 2 lives between this one and the last two. My story I read last night and the one I made before it about the whole Taiwan joke of a, situation. You have everything being set up, to where the West is going down. The sun is setting on the West. It's evident, it's obvious, there will be an Eastern-oriented, Eastern-centric New World Order. The New World Order will not be a Western New World Order. The West won't even exist after World War III. China and Russia are going to vanquish the West. Like it or not, for better or for worse, they're all evil scumbags. They're all evil scumbags. But if you don't think that God is going to let Satan eat his own and let judgment come to these Western elites for all the evils they've done, then you're gravely mistaken. Because they're the first to get judged. Because when God judges nations, he judges it from its highest elite all the way to its lowest bum. It's always been that way in the Bible, and it's going to continue to be that way because God never changes. God never changes. So the Western elites all the way to the lowest bums. That's how it's going to happen. The United States and its allies of the West are going to be destroyed and judged and fall first. We're stuck with China and Russia until Armageddon. So that's why I warn about them, because they're the leaders until the end of the world. So, like it or not, that's what it is. That's what it's going to be. That's what it is. So that's what's going on with that. I'm going to, let me cover this up real quick. I'm going to flip this. Oh, I think I'm going to get out some of my maps maybe here pretty soon, though I'm not really sure. You see, I wanted people to go and listen to the audio book, which is the entire reason why I'm making the audio book. But the thing with that is that you got, where did I put? Damn it. Sorry about that, y'all. I basically misplaced my maps. I wanted to wanted to get my maps out so I could show everybody what some of the stuff I was talking about in the audiobook actually was, but I can't find them. I think, oh, okay, yeah, no, never mind. Hold on, I put them in here. Put them in this plastic Ziploc bag I keep them in. I thought I laid them down with my writings. But basically, what I'm writing about in this audio book is that I'm trying to show people different places where different things are occurring. I had my Texas thing, even though I didn't show that area this time around like I did in my first one. I showed the Texas map in the for the first story and for the third story, split up the middle. But for my newest audiobook, I'm showing the Cap region right here in Maryland. Here's your 31st Group Army right here, which is Private Lee Chung's humongous formation he's a part of some, 52,000 odd troops. And, I'm showing the part that occurred along the Montana-Idaho line here, and then I'm also showing what happened in the upper Midwest, because I never really discussed the Midwest in my documentaries, though I did discuss, in my very first typed story, I discussed Broken Bow, Oklahoma, right here. Broken Bow. This little green dot right here, this is that was the people that resisted in Broken Bow, the fighting people, the armed civilians that resisted in Broken Bow, right here. You see, Texarkana, you had this PAP brigade that was a Trojan unit right here. They took over Red River Army Depot and the Lone Star Army Ammunition Plant, which are these two circles right here, these hollow circles. They took those over in Texarkana. Then you had the other Trojan unit, this massive 83rd Group Army going up the highway, up 45, taking the roads up to Texarkana, setting up their AO with this PAP brigade, and then they moved into tertiary areas like Broken Bow. That was what was conveyed in the first story. Then in your third story, what you had was Trojan units being mentioned, like this Russian Second Combined Arms Army, who helped this Chinese Trojan unit, which was the PLA 68th Group Army, and they both took over Fort Hood and destroyed 3 corps in one fell swoop and captured Fort Hood, And then you had the other character that crossed the border and went all the way to Kansas before fanning out with the other massive amounts of group armies. You had all of these group armies and this Russian Combined Arms Army, which were the externals that crossed into the United States and went up the highways. They went up this way. There was a grouping of 10 or so that went up I-10 and went into the southeast. Then you had another grouping that went up to Amarillo before fanning out. And then you had another grouping all the way over here that defeated the forces that were in the El Paso area at Fort Bliss before moving into New Mexico and continuing up into Colorado. And then, of course, in my second story, you had the events of Arizona, where I discussed all the group armies that moved up through Arizona. This would have been a monumental, gargantuan invasion, the likes of which that nobody can even fathom. It would be so freakishly humongous. And then, of course, you had the situation that occurred here, which is in my audiobook now. You had the one of the most epic battles. In fact, I think I made 5 or 6 videos in my documentary playlist, my 96-hour invasion playlist. I made 6 videos or so, 5 or 6, devoted just to the capture of this place here, of the Cap, So the characters, Private Lee of this unit here, They went around the outside. This Pakistani allied unit here, the Lancers. It was the 17th Lancers and the which was a regiment, and then you had this humongous 31st Group Army here, and then you had Russian units once they finished up at the Richmond battle, also in my documentary. You had them all moving up and seizing the Cap. They took the Cap because this was like the equivalent for my entire documentary of what the Battle of Berlin was at the end of World War II, when the Soviets entered Berlin to capture Berlin from the Nazis, from Hitler. And, that this was like the climactic battle of the entire invasion right here, which is why I've decided to put that in my story, in my audio book, because it's going to be a big part of the actual storytelling in my audiobook, because it is such a big thing. It is such a major thing. And it's going to be depicted in all of its brutality, all of its destruction, all of it. If you know anything about, this entire area, then you understand how important it would be to our enemies for their units to take it. I mean, not only because of you have things like Fort Detrick and Anniston, Maryland, where there's chemical and bio things. Like there was a unit belonging to the 58th Russian Combined Arms Army that was en route to Detrick to seize the chemical and bio weapons programs. But you would also have there's the whole area being so militarized. They would want to squash it with everything they had in the area. Like they would be doing coastal landings. You'd have armadas firing, cruise missiles and just a whole thing, a whole gamut of things. You got Norfolk down here. There was the Battle of Norfolk in my 96-hour invasion documentary too. You had Richmond was another big one. Then you had, the Cap. You had the Cap. The Cap was a huge battle right there. So, this whole region is going to feature prominently in my audiobook for that reason, because there's so much in this area that our enemies would want to just totally annihilate and seize immediately. Because, for one, they want to knock the regime out so that they capitulate and they sign some sort of a formal surrender. And then, you got all the different things that they'd want to capture. Like I said, like the chemical and bio programs and the, they'd want to eliminate our main, East Coast naval, shipyards and everything else. I mean, we only have 4 military shipyards in this entire country. It's not like we have all this production capacity left anyway, but I'm saying they would want to knock those things out. There's a huge naval base, there's, air bases, there's all kinds of installations in that whole Norfolk area that our enemies would want to subdue immediately. This was a huge campaign in the documentary series. But of course, this was monumentally bigger. This here was gargantuan, because you had, well over 1.5 million troops in only these 3 states. In just these 3 states, between the Trojans, that you see these little rings. This is a Trojan unit because it's a ring. It's where they began. Here, up here, and here, around all the big cities, basically. You had some Trojans around Albuquerque and Santa Fe, too, and, you have one here. You would basically have, these Trojans breaking out, doing their damage, seizing things, and this was only 3 states, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. And there was almost, there was well over 1.5 million enemy troops operating in the area. Look at all the air power. Each of these is a squad of 8 heavy strategic bombers, be they Russian or Chinese. The reds are the Russians. Then the triangles were each a squadron of 12 fighters or tactical ground attack aircraft, like the tactical fighter bombers. So you had all of this air power. You had literally hundreds and hundreds of planes flying nonstop sorties and leveling cities to just, complete dust and debris. doing combat air patrols to make sure that we didn't even get a chance to fly anything, or, like with their fighters, or we're doing ground attack to support all their ground troops. You had all of this just going on in this area. This was a monumental map right here. I didn't even do battle maps in my documentary for the Texas one because it would have been so huge. It would have been so huge. I would have had to do a whole bunch of different battles because this was such a big map. So what I did instead was I made that community posting where it showed this map, and I wrote all the details in the pin comment about who all was involved, as well as in the actual what was it, the post itself, where I wrote about all the different group armies and what we had versus they had, the numbers involved, who contributed what. I put all of that in the pin comment for this map on a community post, a little ways back. I try to leave everything where people can see it. Then, of course, you have the Northwest map. Because this part of the country is so sparsely populated, relatively speaking. I mean, Wyoming doesn't have very many people, nor does really Montana or Idaho. I mean, Washington's a little populated, but most of it's over here on the coast, and Oregon, most of it's coast. But this, for the most part, there's really not that many people in the Northwest. But even so, there was still over 1 million troops involved in this area. When you look at the prongs that invaded, the two different prongs, the western Montana prong and the Washington prong, or the Washington-Oregon prong, rather. And then, you had the Trojans that began inside. You had this North Korean Corps. You had this Korean People's Army of the North Koreans. You had, which was an ally, of course, of Russia. You had these two Russian combined arms armies, and then all the rest of these different CHICOM units. You even had a CHICOM Marine Militia paramilitary corps that landed here to seize the Olympic Peninsula. So, you had all of that going on. You had all their armadas, sailing down from their CHICOM and other bases on the coast of Canada to do their, to land their troops and to, bombard us with cruise missiles from out in the sea and all of that. And of course, you would have Club Ks firing off from the CCP regime properties. You see, this 7th Group Army is a Trojan force. They're mentioned in the story as a few of their tiniest units, like starting on the very edge right here of their AO, their jump-off points by Butte. Butte was right here. So their very edge of their jump-off points, you had a couple, battalions here in the Butte area, but most of their forces were over here, around Helena and Billings, and, they moved down there. So, you had all of that happening. You had this PAP force here taking over the Mountain Home Air Base. The Mountain Home Air Base, that was like one of the first things they did, along with these, ground attack planes and fighters. They flew down here to hit the Mountain Home Air Base, and then they sent a few of their battalions out here and 2 up here to help all of these guys. So this would have been like a monumental undertaking across the entire nation, and there are myriads of foreign troops in Canada, Mexico, Bahamas, Cuba, Panama Canal Zone, Nicaragua, Mexico. Yeah, that's right. I already said that. They're all over Venezuela too. There's bombers there of like Russia, and there's Chinese troops there too. There's enemy forces all over North and South America. They're getting ready to take us down to where this is going to be real life. This is very, very much the reality that's coming at us fast and furious. So I hope people are ready for that, which is why I'm writing my audio book. It's not a joke. It's not a game. This is very, very serious. So, I'm going to see who all dropped in here and see what's going on. But Yeah, they're going to take over Western Europe. NATO's over. They're going to take over Western Europe. NATO is a pathetic joke. I've already told you all how weak the Western European NATO contributors are, how barely any forces that they have are, compared to Russia, and then especially China. And then you have the other allies of China and Russia just to boot that are in the area. Just to boot, you got Serbia, you got Belarus, you got other CSTO members that would probably contribute. You've got Albania, you've got all of these other people that would be fighting the West. With China and Russia doing all the heavy lifting, of course. But the West is set to have an epic fail, and that's why I've been warning people. I've been warning people about our enemies for a long time, because the CCP is the biggest enemy, the biggest threat we face. With the Russians being, the second. But the CCP is the biggest threat we face. People that worry about AI and all that stuff, it's like, well, most people aren't going to live to see AI. Most people aren't going to live to see AI, to see it mature to where it's going to be some sort of a big issue. But what I can say right now is that the CCP controls the most advanced AI on the earth right now. So, like I said before, what is scarier than a communist robot? Huh? Well, I mean, really, I kind of jest about it. I jest about it halfway, but on the same token, think about it. If you have a robot, well, not a robot, but I should say artificial intelligence that had script written for it, they wrote the script for it to where it is undyingly loyal to whatever principality they have ruling them, whether, Xi Jinping, whether he's Satan incarnate or he's some other sort of a principality, that AI has had script written for it to where it is unquestioningly loyal to Chinese communism and to the CCP and to Xi Jinping, their little God-man emperor that they worship forever. It's that AI has had script written for it to where it is pledged its unquestioning loyalty to the CCP. So, who is the biggest threat right now? Yeah, I would say it's the Red Dragon. I would say it's not any other singular issue. I would say the Red Dragon is the biggest threat we face. Bar none. Bar none. Bar freaking none. So that is why I warn people, and I warn people, and warn people some more. And I'm not a biased person, because I sure will say the truth, no matter what the truth is. I talk up whatever the truth is. If something's true, then you know what? I speak it. I've already said that in the other live, and I gave an example. I'm speaking on reality here. The reality we face is very grim, very dire. And people would be wise to pay very close attention to the work I've put in and pay very close attention to what's going on and how it all fits together and ties together. And the good metric, a very good metric by which to measure everything, is the metric that I've said before. The collapse, the internal conflict, followed by the invasion, which comes after the collapse and internal conflict. So that is a very good metric by which to measure everything you see going on and how it all fits together. I even tied in Serbia and vis-a-vis Kosovo and the whole Ukraine thing. I even tied all that in, to all this that I'm talking about. I've tied in everything. I've tied in the food and fuel collapse and everything else. It's all to weaken us. They're shaping the battlefield. They're shaping the battlefield, meaning they're weakening us and shaping it to where it'll make their job easier. It'll make their job easier. That is called shaping the battlefield. That's the most apt, most realistic term you can use for such a thing. It's called shaping the battlefield. They're getting the battlefield ready for the day that they invade. Weakening us is part of shaping the battlefield. And that's exactly what they're doing. That's what they've been doing, and it's what they're going to continue to do. They're not going to let no little fly no little fly get into their ointment of their very carefully laid planning. They're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. You know, not the way people think. You know, if you want to know more about that and the whole take on that, then go back and watch not my audiobook one I read late last night, but the one right before it, the one where I'm in the thumbnail wearing my armor. Go watch that. I talk about, I give my entire take on that whole situation, and with logic and reasoning, I explain it. So, you know, I'm not like these people that are like, oh my God, oh my God, you know, so scared. You know, I mean, all these people that they just read these articles and they don't do their due diligence. They're not going and looking at things further to see how these things really fit together. Instead, they're just taking everything at face value. You know, I wanted to proverbially raise my glass to a few different people, as they say, you know, or tip of the hat, or raise your glass. You know, there's people that are going after a certain, you know, privately owned, government-operated channel. I watched a marathon last night. I thought it was great, and I want to give my tip of the hat to those good fellows there that are managing that whole thing. And I wanted to say, you know, I watched one of them, and the guy's right. And I've been basically saying much of the same thing this whole time. You know, there's people that are literally perpetuating mainstream media in the alternative media. I know you've heard me say that before. I know you all have heard me say that before. There's people, essentially, for a lack of a better way to put it, they're reading MSM narratives and stories and perpetuating the narrative. They're not going and trying to rectify some of these issues and put them in some sort of a, you know, a more reasonable, logical format. There are straight up people that are like pogo channels that just read MSM articles to perpetuate the psyops and the narratives. And you know, there is a really big one. There's a really big one doing that. Actually, quite a few, but the one I'm thinking of that comes to mind is one that has been harassing other people. And if you know, I think we all know who that is. You know, at this point, I don't need to mention no names. I don't need to name drop, but I'm going to say that. You know, it's somebody that has been evidently going around and harassing smaller channels. So, you know, this is somebody with well in excess of what, like 100,000 or something like that. You know, that's like pogo territory. You know, that's pogo territory. Because if you are allowed to get that big that fast, something is really seriously wrong. I mean, my God, man, like, I'm literally, and I can't help but smile when I say it, man. It's just too funny to me. It's too funny because it makes no sense. I am literally hovering in the same area as far as the numbers of subs I have goes, and I don't even care. I don't give a shit. I don't give a flying shit. You know, I just think it's funny. I find it incredibly funny because my channel, I told people, and I told them months ago, it'll never be allowed to grow beyond 3,000 subs. Never. You will never see my channel grow beyond 3,000 subs. And it's going to stay that way. It really is going to stay that way. Because they hate me. They hate me. They hate what I talk about. They hate this channel. They hate it. But why do they hate it so much? Rhetorical question. I think you all know the answer. I think you all know the answer well, why they hate my channel. But it's all good. It's all fine and good. I'm getting off of here soon anyway. I don't give a shit. I'm basically at the point where I'm about done with all of this. So, you know, it's been fun. I mean, you know, yeah, I'm going to finish my project. Yeah, I'm going to have Interspaced, you know, Friday and maybe a few other shows here and there. But after that, I'm out of here. I'm done. You know, I've done my job. I've created a mountain, a pile of different things, that different resources people can use to try to educate them so they can try and navigate all this when it comes about. You know, I don't get a dime for it. I don't even ask for shit for this. It's called kingdom work. It's called my kingdom work. I just do this out of the kindness of my heart. The Chad Carr channel is low budget history channel. I've got documentaries galore, and this has been the low budget history channel. And it's all educational. It's all made to be educational. And again, I don't want shit for this. I just want people to survive, man. I just want people to get through all this, navigate this, you know. I want people to learn so that they have a realistic expectation of what's coming. And not some fantasy or misconception. I want people to understand the inner mechanics of how all of these things come together. There are mechanics behind how all this stuff works. If people would just pay attention, if they just pay attention, they would learn the mechanics. So, you know, I'm about done though. You know, thank you all for sticking with me, and I appreciate you all. You all be blessed, and you all have a beautiful, beautiful night. Thank you. Let me see who's all in here before I bounce. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, sweetheart. Jeffrey, and Betty Truthseeker, and P4 Plenty, and Priscilla, and Lady M, good to see you. Vidra, Nixie, hey Nixie, Mary Flasha, and Cindy P. Just Man, good to see you, bro. Bang Bang, great to see you. Oh yeah, that's right, I already said hi. All Smiles. Angry Scandinavian. Hey, what's up, man? TT. Well, you all be blessed. MB, good to see you too. You all be blessed. Thank you all for coming, man. It's been fun, y'all. It's been fun.